I tell people all the time that growing up, I always wanted to do something creative.
We always have this thing is like, is there anything you wanted to do other than what you're doing right now as a career? I always wanted to have a path in sports. Fantasy sports is a good tool to showcase and who's the most knowledgeable. Most of the league I have never met face to face too. Even that one, still consider them really good friends of mine.
I still consider myself one of the greatest unsigned GMs in sports history that has yet to be able to be a GM yet. All I need is 2 seasons.
2 seasons, all I need is 1.
Oh, shit.
Hey guys, welcome back to Simply Talk, where creativity has no limits. Brought to you by Simply Creative. I'm a filmmaker and chef, and my day job at the moment is baker.
They already know who you are. This is episode 3.
They gotta remember, bro. Just in case, they gotta remember. Like, who's to say they their computer froze for a second and jumped like 5 minutes later, and then we're already
3 times in a row.
Yeah,
3 episodes. Dang. Oh, yes, this is Jeffrey, as always, filmmaker, podcaster, all things creative. I'm an actor as well. I have an IMDb, but I didn't pay my monthly subscription, so you won't see my picture, but you'll see my name. I'm the only one with the name.
I'm Zach, born and raised Naples, Florida. Avid sports fan. I'm a chef as well. Former boss of Andres. Currently an executive sous chef at a country club over in Boca.
I wanted to ask something about that. A lot of people I know live in Naples, but not a lot of people, but people that I do know that live in Naples, they tend to come down and work in Florida, or they spend a lot of their time in like Miami, I mean to say.
Yes. Well, how I put on this one is Naples. I haven't been back to Naples since I graduated high school, 2011.
Okay.
You kind of got the people that stay, that find a life there. You got people that, just even decide to say, you know what, I'm kind of done with this hometown and go see something different. I was one of those fortunate ones to say, hey, I'm going to go see something different.
Since we're talking about Naples, I have a side question that it's basically like the stereotype that everyone has when they're like from outside a certain region, but like in Miami, people think of Miami Beach, but there's much more to that. You growing up in Naples, what is Naples to you that outsiders don't see because of the postcards?
Beautiful, gorgeous beaches, resorts, palm trees, golfing. That's the image that a lot of it's put out there for tourism. But which I like to find it funny, is where I grew up in Naples. If you guys look up on the map, it's the Golden Gate Estates. For me to get to the beach from where I grew up, if I were to drive, probably be about maybe 45 minutes to an hour. So lived out in the Everglades, as you can say, like Naples, Florida, Everglades area.
You're like the Homestead or the Kendall.
Yes, good comparison. I would say Homestead, actually. Homestead over Kendall. Easily Homestead, just because you're in farmlands and kind of stuff like that, where you kind of look out Florida Panthers in your backyard. That was a very normal thing. Bears attacking your trash cans. That part of Naples, the Everglades part of Naples, the alligators, rattlesnakes, the stuff you go to the zoo to see. That was daily life. So getting out of there, coming over to this coast and being in the city life is almost a treat in a sense. So I think I like it a little bit better than how I grew up.
Yeah, the country life ain't for me.
Been there,
Bears
done that.
And alligators, panthers, and all of that. That's one of the reasons why I couldn't live in Georgia like that full time, because I just couldn't take it. I couldn't take that. You know what I mean? Unless I'm in a city somewhere, even though I don't go out about a lot in the city, but just to know that I'm in it, it's priceless to me.
You would wake up in the morning and you'd hear the trash truck go by, and then you'd have to wake up because you had about 2 to 3 minutes until the trash truck will go down to the end of the street, turn around and come back to get your trash out there. Because if you put it out like you normally do, say in the city, you put it out maybe the night before, before you go to bed, or maybe in the morning as you go to work, just as a casual routine. No stress, no worries, no anxiety. Because if you put your trash can out just 5 minutes too early, there will be a bear that will attack your trash can. You can't just leave trash out in the woods like that.
We all learned something about Naples. There's more to it than what the postcard shows.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So with that, what is fantasy sports and how is it played?
Easy in a nutshell. Best way to describe it is if you're out at a sports bar or so, you're having a casual conversation with friends, or hear that one friend in your group that's always, arguing about their local sports team or their favorite team. I wish I can do something better like that, or why they do this. Why did this transaction happen? What about this player? Or just strictly going down to a player and how terrible they're playing or how great they're playing. You basically are an acting GM/owner of your own team. And what that basically entails is you have the same full player pool as the actual league does. Good example right now would be baseball's in full swing. So I can go between baseball and football. What you do is you guys enable what you would say is an acting ownership. Each member of this league is an owner of a single team. Once you have that established, then usually what you would do is establish a draft date. Fantasy sports breaks it down to, you've got divisions that you play into a season. That's a collection of stats through that year on your team. That's essentially what you're doing for your fantasy team. You're drafting who you think is the best players possible on your team, depending on who is available to you in your spot in the draft. Say you have a bad 2 weeks in the first season, that's okay. Fix it with some players. It's also you're the owners. You have an injured player, put him on the injury list. Or maybe he's an injured player that's not so great, drop him. Pick up another player that's a free agent. You have full range of trading players with other owners in the league. That's what I think is fun with fantasy, is you really have a complete knowledge, complete grasp of, hey, I own this fantasy team and see what I got. Put your knowledge into it. You think people know sports, and a lot of people talk like they know sports. Everyone's got opinions. That's the great thing with sports. Fantasy sports is a good tool to showcase and who's the most knowledgeable.
So, in other words, you need to be doing your homework. It's not something that you can just walk in.
You can walk in. My favorite sports that I say is a good introductory tool would be fantasy football. Fantasy football is an easy tool to it because you really only have 2 days of football that you have to worry about. Your classic Sundays and then your Monday night football game. But there's lots of tools that you can really grasp on it in drafting, because drafting is very important. You may have a tough time in your first season if you're going against a league where people do know what they're doing and understand the flow of the draft and when to pick up players. That comes with experience. So football, good introductory into it to get a good basis into, where you've only got a small roster of maybe 10, 12 players. You want to do something that's a little bit serious and a little bit more time consuming, a lot more in depth of your involvement. Baseball is a game of failure. Baseball stats, you going 1 for 4, that's a 250 batting average. You're basically getting on a hit 25% of the time. So it's really a game of a lot more numbers and a lot more thinking and in depth into it would be that.
For drafting, do they have to be current players, or can you draft from seasoned players?
They have to be current rostered players, just for the fact of, you're not going to go into football right now and draft Peyton Manning. He's not an active player. It's not so far as fantasy as that. That is a big fantasy. There'd be a lot of players, a lot of people would want on their team, like Barry Sanders and such, but it would be great to enable something like that, to have a fun game to play on your phone that can, do simulations or so.
And the one thing about that, just to add to that, is that as important as drafting is, the waiver wire is also extremely important during the season, because guys are going to get hurt. People are going to drop guys that they think aren't going to be doing anything, and then they end up hitting their stride mid-season, late in the season, and that actually can play dividends for somebody. I was in a league once, and I literally missed my own draft. It was terrible. The computer picked for me.
But sometimes, that's the thing, is sometimes that can benefit you, and sometimes that can really, kick you in the ass. But just like Jeffrey said, it comes down for waiver wires. You've got teams that almost play that as a strategy. But if you are a player that doesn't understand the waivers, that can really make and break your season. Just because a player gets hurt doesn't mean you're out.
Like, is there like an entity that updates or that monitors how you play the game?
I believe Fanbase is the fan base for ESPN. Don't quote me on that one.
How'd you get into it?
The love for sports. That's always the first thing. I've always loved sports since a little tyke. Big shout out to the baseball league I'm in right now. Got a player that came in last place, got suspended for a year. He didn't do his last place punishment. That's kind of how serious the league is. We punished him. But no, it's super cool. You got a good group of dudes that we all have a Discord. We all got Facebook. We all communicate with each other. Most of the league I have never met face to face too. Even that one, still consider them really good friends of mine. Just as you would say with like a good group is like good gamers online. You talk with your friends in a good game party that you have online for years and years that you consider your brothers and your closest friends.
You definitely get a camaraderie when you're doing fantasy sports. I was in, like, again, the league I was in, there were people that I didn't see since elementary school that were in the fantasy league, and it allows you to connect back with people too. It's like, man, you're an adult now, and then you see, people that you haven't seen since then. It's cool. It's good. And then you also, there's also people that you never knew that are part of the league too, that might be good friends with one of the persons that you're in the league with. And they're like, oh yeah. And the conversations in between that are always good too, when you're sitting there talking a little smack here and there, if you're into competitive sports. So I had fun. I haven't been doing it for a while, but it definitely lets you be competitive when you're not as fast as you used to be. in real life.
Yes, good point on that one. And we all aren't professional athletes anymore, so it's kind of fun to be able to express our own opinions towards how we feel on sports. Not only as, like I said, I'm a Red Sox fan, but if you looked at my fantasy team right now, I believe, in all honesty, I think I have one Red Sox on my entire fantasy team. And that's just the funny side to it, is this really breaks the norm out of you to not just be a homer, as people would say with their sports teams, and really express a big knowledge and understanding of there are 29, 30 other teams that are in this league that have phenomenal talent on their team that you might not know about or understand or have learned of yet. And fantasy sports really does that. Best thing is too is I love when my father talks to me about sports. Is a lot of times he comes to me now about certain news or certain knowledge on players because he knows I play fantasy, and he's like, well, how do you know about this player? And it's, well, you kind of have to know about every player in the league.
I don't know if it's just me, but it shows that you have a real passion for this game, or just have a huge amount of respect for sports in general. Like, it feels like it's in your DNA.
We always have this thing, is like, is there anything you wanted to do other than what you're doing right now as a career? I always wanted to have a path in sports, to at least be on the field and, deal with sports injuries. And I don't have the brain capacity to go to school for, 8+ years for medical school. But even I've always been a dream of mine to be sports analytics, broadcasting, journalism. That's been a passion of mine that I've always wanted to pursue, but cooking was just how it was with me at the time that why I decided to do cooking felt like the more sustainable career path.
You had a big dream that was a risk, and then you had the 9-to-5 like sustainable job, which is the cooking. Because I tell people all the time that growing up I always wanted to do something creative, and when it came down to film versus culinary, it's a simple quote that my brother told me, that people always need to eat. Yeah, nowadays it's very, and this is the very reason why we're having this conversation. You came up to me last week asking me about like tips on starting a podcast, and I'll be lying to you if I tell you that I know what the fuck I'm doing. I don't, but I can at least give you one step forward by inviting you over. And honestly, bro, it's very engaging when you have a guest that knows and is so intimate about what they're talking about. I don't know if you knew this, but Jeffrey, after this, has another podcast to recap on last night's fight. That apparently, what's the guy's name? Connor?
I lost
Conor
$5
McGregor.
and he broke his foot.
Oh shit, that's what happened.
That's crazy. I was so upset. I use fantasy sports as a great outlet to let me do something that I've always wanted to do. I've hated math. But there's something with sports stats, and even to the side note onto it, with the fantasy league I'm in now, to scratch the itch for journalism. So I do like what ESPN does. I write a weekly recap that as you read it through, you're reading it like you're listening to an ESPN broadcast. Really makes it fun to have people wake up on a Monday, look at the score sheet after the week of matchup, and read the matchup of what's going on, and then get ready for the next week's matchup.
It kind of sounds like the sports version of like Dungeons and Dragons, or those role-playing games where you're technically still role-playing, but in a different form. You're actually like almost a manager of the team, or it's insane.
But what's fun is you're going to watch what we call watching dots. Is you're going to have your fantasy app pulled up. You're going to have your lineup there. You're going to see your players' names, and you're going to see, I've got Aaron Rodgers. He's playing up there. You're going to watch him play. You've never seen Aaron Rodgers play before, but you're going to watch him and cheer him on because why? He's on your fantasy team. And then when you see him throw a touchdown, you see your number go from 0 to 6 because he scored a touchdown. Yep. And you just like, that excitement into it is so cool to see your score increase. And then even too is just exhilarating as watching a score of a team come back and win, or watching your team completely dominate another team and just go, wow, that was cake. That was easy. It's very engaging. It's one of those things where you don't just set and forget and then check it on Monday. You can really get engaged into it and watch it and be really in tuned. Go out on Andres, I challenge you on football season. Just pick a Sunday. Go to any restaurant on Sunday. Sit in front of a bar and look around you. Everybody has their phone out and is scrolling because they're looking at their fantasy scores. You go to a nice restaurant, you'll see some guy at the side of his table with his phone at the side of his lap.
Even if his date is in front of him and there's a TV in there and the game's on, he's going to
Exactly.
You know what you're talking about too, then, Jeffrey. You've seen that
Yep.
shit, no?
We know from experience. I'm
Yeah.
married, Andres. I've done it before.
I'll keep an eye on. What would be your elevator pitch to the audience as to why they should get into fantasy sports?
Sports is fun. Sports has always been something to gather friends around, to either banter with people, to express opinions. We've all got opinions, but this is a better way to express our opinions and still have fun with it. Challenge yourself. If you're a sports fan, or maybe your spouse is a sports fan, but fantasy sports is technically free. You just get a good group of guys, good group of girls, guys, all your friends or so. Jump into a league, download your app, and have fun. Maybe throw in $5 a pot. Maybe throw 10, or maybe throw $1. Throw nothing. Just doesn't matter. Just go in it, enjoy it, have some fun.
I still consider myself one of the greatest unsigned GMs in sports history that has yet to be able to be a GM yet. I'd take any team to a Super Bowl. All I need is 2 seasons.
It's 2 seasons. All I need is 1.
Oh shit! Well, I ain't
that's his
All I
closing
need is
statement right there.
1.
That was his closing
That's it.
statement right there. Clean and simple.
One
Pat Riley's
season,
successor.
Jesus.
Zach, what do you see yourself doing like within a year or two, like outside of chef life? What do you want to do?
Still really interested in getting my toes wet in commentary. Something about play-by-play, or even doing just sports analysis is just such a fun thing to get across opinion-based, fact-based knowledge to people.
Well, hopefully this is the first cobblestone for that road. So yeah, as always, thank you guys for watching another episode of Simply Talk, where we covered the basics of fantasy sports. It was such an honor having an old friend and boss to guest star.
He was your boss.
Yeah.
Don't shy away
I mean,
from
technically speaking, we started in the same tier. We were both cooks, and then they promoted him because something happened with the other sous chef. It was meant to be. He got promoted in the walk-in. That's a chef thing. We do our business in the walk-in.
Yep.
Both professional and unprofessional.
Take it to the walk-in.
You're in trouble when your chef asks you to go to the walk-in. Just saying. Yeah. As always, stay creative and have a good one.